Peace, family. For those who do not know me, my name is Ohun Ashe. I am an activist, an advocate, community organizer, and the founder of For the Culture STL. And today I am sitting down with someone I fiercely believe in, my sister in the movement, a friend, the former Congresswoman Cori Bush. This conversation is so important today because too often, Black women specifically, when we are bold, when we speak loud in public and in politics, too often the narrative is told for us. Yes. We don't get to utter a word of our stories. Someone else does it, and they usually do it in a way that does not paint the full picture. So I'm so thankful to be sitting down with you today, Cori. We have been in this for a long time together, organizing in Ferguson in 2014, Jason Stockley in 2017, 2020 with Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd. And again, May 16th, a tornado ripped through Black parts of North St. Louis, where we organized again. And now we are at another pivotal moment.
Yes.
You just recently announced your run again for the first congressional seat of Missouri District. How are you feeling? How are you doing? How has the community been receiving it?
You know, first of all, so good to be able to have this conversation with you, especially just because of our history and because no matter what, came my way, no matter what was said about me, no matter how many lies were thrown, you have always stood by me, stood by my side and pushed me as well, but also been an inspiration for me and so many, across the community. So I'm so glad to be doing this with you. Let me just say the response has been amazing. The response has been just overwhelming because I really didn't know what to expect. Knowing what you have to do and, but how will that be received, it's two different things. But people have been letting me know, like, we're so glad. But even leading up to it, people were like, you got to do it, like, run. Yes. And so I'm so glad to have finally reconciled with myself, like, this is what we got to do because St. Louis deserves, leadership that will fight for St. Louis and speak up for St. Louis and listen to St. Louis and care about St. Louis and, like, be St. Louis. So that's always going to be who I am.
So if we can go back just a little bit to the 2024 campaign cycle.
Yeah.
I have seen many campaign cycles, but I have not seen one as vicious as that one was. The attacks on you, the attacks on your family, the attacks on your record. I remember calling you and texting you to check in often because sometimes I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. So how have you been coping? How have you been dealing with and gearing up for this next cycle?
It was tough, that last cycle, there was no real way to prepare for something that people couldn't speak to experiencing before. There was nobody I could really ask about, like, what was to come. And it was devastating in a lot of ways. And not because I lost the race at all, because, like, this is a democracy. If you want to run and you meet the qualifications, you live in that state and all of that, you're at the age and everything, fine. So my issue isn't someone running against me.
Yeah.
My issue was that this was somebody that was supposed to be a friend, somebody that I had helped before, and someone that I had a conversation with after being told, you know what, this person isn't really running for U.S. Senate. They're just doing that to raise money. They're really running against you. There was even an article that came out when, and I'm speaking about Wesley Bell, when Wesley Bell first announced he was running for U.S. Senate. There was an article that came out that said that he wasn't really running against, he was really running against me. And because people kept calling me and saying that to me, I didn't believe it. I'm like, not him.
Yeah.
And so, but I called him.
Yeah.
I called him and And he said he wasn't running against me. And he said that, I could never run against you because, we won our races the same way, and, all of this. And so there's a bit of a clip of the radio, of the telephone call that I want I want you all to hear.
Don't even think for even a second that that's the case. I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you on my word, I ain't not running. Well, that's not happening.
If this is what friends or even, good associates will do to you, like, what's the point in having, an enemy?
Yeah.
So, walking out the loss, because I knew not only what I was working towards for St. Louis. And let me just say, it was like an onion. It's like an onion that had to be, you had to peel the layers. But the politics of St. Louis, especially on the federal level, it wasn't just the onion that you had where you had to peel away the layers. It was an onion with a Rubik's Cube on the inside and some cobwebs mixed up in there. That's what I had to work through and try to break apart in order to be able to then start the work. And so that's what we were doing. And so I knew I had to go hard. I knew I had to be who I am authentically to do it. And would it piss some people off? Yeah. But who's really pissed off? The people that's still struggling in our communities when they don't have to, when it's only related to policy violence. That's who's really mad. That's who should be mad. So I decided to get myself together, figure out Cori's next thing. And it was, I decided to do this to be vulnerable about what really happened. But walking that out, knowing that I wasn't leaving the seat because I wasn't taking care of St. Louis or because I was flaking on the job. That's not why I was leaving the seat. I wasn't leaving the seat because I was doing something wrong. I was leaving the seat because billionaires made a decision. Republicans made the decision that they were going to target me. And so they came for me using somebody that was supposed to be one of our own. Somebody that people said, Cori, we worked for him the same way we worked for you. We worked for him to get him in the county prosecutor's seat. We worked for you to go to Congress. So I feel betrayed. But I wanna say this too. All of the legislation that we worked on, all of the legislation that we put together, the legislation that I sponsored from the People's Response Act, that I authored and sponsored, People's Response Act. I work with several organizations, amazing organizations to put that one together. But People's Response Act and the Reparations Now bill, just so many. We have bills on public transit, bills on the climate crisis, Green New Deal for cities. We have a bill that we worked on with Mike Brown's mom, Leslie McSpadden, the Helping Families Heal Act. But not only that, all of the other work that we did in Congress, when there was an eviction moratorium in 2021 that was expiring, and 11 million people across the country were about to be at risk for evictions. 7,000 in St. Louis in this district alone. 7,000. How could we have 7,000 more people hitting the street? I decided to do what I do. Protest. Make some noise, flip some tables. And people, and people say, oh, well, you won't make any change. But we did. We actually did. And we were able to get that moratorium, get that extension on that moratorium. And people were able to stay in their homes. The work that we've done with whether it's the unhoused, me starting the Equal Rights Amendment Caucus, never been done in 100 years. I was the first Black woman to ever carry that legislation, me and Ayanna Pressley. And just all of the things that we did, it didn't matter to those billionaires. And the Republicans were pissed about it. So they wanted to come for me. And they didn't care about the $2 billion we brought to St. Louis. They didn't care about any of that leadership. They only cared about removing me from the seat because it would fit with their agenda.
Yes.
And that, St. Louis, that is what devastated me, because you deserve better than that. You deserve better than them removing your representative that you elected, because you elected me based on what you know about me, who you've known me to be, the work that I've done in the streets for years, what I gave to St. Louis, who you know me to be authentically. And they came in and made the decision that we're going to tell you who she is, and we're going to lie, we're going to deceive you, we're going to distort the truth, and we don't need it to be true. We just need you to believe it.
Whew, Cori, you just said a mouthful. And as somebody that has walked this journey with you and been by your side, I've always known that your heart and your passion has been for the people of St. Louis and making St. Louis good for everyone. Yeah. So hearing your opponent, hearing the fact that Wesley Bell called you and lied to you about his intentions, and then ran ads saying your character, it just brings to light what ads can do and what how it hurts and damages what the reputation that you actually have is. Yes. Which is, again, why I think it's so important that we're having this conversation with this audience today, so that they can hear directly from you. Yeah. You also just walked us through all of the things that you did in your time in that seat. So for the narrative that she didn't do anything, she didn't bring any money home, she wasn't helping anyone, you just showed just a few things that you were able to do in that time. So when you couple together what you've done and the attack that you received on the last campaign cycle, I remember being there that election night at your campaign party. And when we got the news that you would not be, I remember feeling devastated. Yeah. I remember knowing that St. Louis was on the line and what place we just put ourselves in. And I also thought about all of the attacks on your family, on you. So I have to ask, knowing that you put your all into it the first time, and that there was nothing that you had to do to prove because you were already doing it, and then to see almost how people believe the ads against you more than your own voice, what is calling you to run this time?
Yeah, so first and foremost, and this is something that I said when I was running before, when people would say, you lost, why are you running again? You lost, before I ever won. It's the mission. The mission has to be first. And, I remember when I lost my first race, and I was like, I'm not going to ever do this again. I'm not running again. And I just remember clearly, and because my faith is what keeps me, and, I love the Lord, and that is my, that's my fortress, it's my lighthouse. And I just remember that the Lord just was like, did you accomplish the mission? And all I can say is no, I didn't accomplish well, then you have to go back again. We can't fall apart when things don't go our way, because the real fighter is not the one that fights and wins. The real fighter is the one that will keep going, that can get knocked down and get back up, get knocked down, get back up. And then not only that, when they get back up, there is more added to them. They got stronger. They got better. They learned what they did wrong, or they learned what the issues were. And now, because see, that's the other thing. So you came for a fighter. You came for a fighter. See, you folks should have checked the record. You should have paid attention to who you was coming for. Because the thing is this: you came for someone who who ran without much help and lost their first race. 3 or 4 weeks later, was violently sexual assaulted, and then still got back up and ran a few months later again, because they realized that people that were in the same position as them, somebody needed to to advocate for them. So I got back up again, even though I was hurting from a violent sexual assault. The real word is the R word, but I won't say it to trigger nobody. So, and then I got back up and ran again, and I lost again. But I remembered who I was out there on the streets of Ferguson. I remembered who we are and all the work that we did. And I knew St. Louis deserved more. And so I got back up again, even though I was embarrassed and humiliated and sad. And even though I felt bad that people spent time and money trying to help me run and I didn't win. But I got back up again because St. Louis was worth that. And so even though I got knocked down again and again, I got back up and I came back better. And so what you should have realized was that you came for a fighter. And so you better be ready for the fight. And so if you thought I was just going to go away because you knocked me down, see, the thing is, this is a mission for me. This is about helping to transform St. Louis into who it's supposed to be, not who it is. And so I am bringing that energy to this. And the other thing about it is I'm actually who I say I am. That's the difference between me and him. And this is not to denigrate him. This is not to speak ill of anyone. This is so St. Louis, so you can have the truth. And I'm gonna say this too. There were, and I need to say this part. I need St. Louis for you to hear me here. There were so many things said in that last race that were total lies or distortions of the truth, that was pure deceit. And it was really, really sad that he allowed those things to be said and done and didn't say anything about it. So St. Louis, one thing I need you all to know. So there were ads that said, and I think even a mailer that said that Cori Bush missed over 100 and something votes. So let me help you all to understand. First of all, whether the number is that number, the amount of votes does not equal days. So it wasn't 182 or 100 and whatever days that I missed. In Congress, you can show up to work and have one vote in a day, or you could have 60 in a day. I could have 60 votes today. I could have one vote tomorrow. I could have 30 votes the next day. What happened was I had COVID. I had COVID-19. I was under my doctor's orders, even though we had a strict protocol that was isolation for the first several days. Not only did I believe in isolating like my doctor said and not getting anybody else sick.
Yeah.
I also was sick. I was symptomatic. And so I couldn't go to work. I couldn't show up to vote. I was so sick that I had been in and out of the hospital. I have asthma, and so COVID hits me really hard. I was in constant conversation with the whip's office, with the whip herself, telling her how I was feeling. She was always checking up on me. But it was so much. It was so bad because I care so much about St. Louis. There was one day when the whip called me and she said, Cori, this vote, we really need you for this vote. I know you're sick. I know you're in the bed. I know you're weak and you can barely breathe, but I need you to show up for this vote. Ooh. Can you please? She said, I tell you what, she said, I have somebody who just got over COVID that can help you. I have a way to help you so that the other people can be safe and you can be safe. If you could just show up. I got myself together. My husband helped me to get me up and dressed and to the car, and I made it to the house. And her people held me up because I was too weak to walk on my own. And they held me up and walked me into the chamber so that I could vote. And they held me back out and helped me get to the car. That's the work ethic. That's how much I cared about my job. So when they made it seem like, well, she wasn't showing up to work, most of those votes happened during that week that I was out for COVID. And so I just want the people to know that's the type of deceit. That's the thing. And it's sad because if you want to represent the people, why lie to them?
Yeah. Yeah. And Cori, can we just take a second? Because you just shared a lot. And thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your transparency. And thank you for filling in a picture for people who may not understand. But I definitely want to call out the fact that that is not normal. People should not have to fight under those circumstances. People shouldn't be assaulted and then pick themselves up over and over and over again to only be misheard when it matters. Black women showing up sick and still being brought down by people that should be protecting us. And I just want to call on that fact as people are listening and tuning in. These are the stories of the real fighters in St. Louis, and Cori Bush has always been one of those. And as we talk about the most vulnerable in St. Louis comes to mind right now. We have been hit by a tornado.
Yeah.
We are living in Trump era. We are in a Republican red state. It's so much on the line for the real lives and real people in St. Louis. So can you walk me through what is at stake for us right now and what issues really weigh on your heart?
At this point, all of the work that has happened, especially over the last few decades, where we have made progress, progress on equality, progress on equity in the areas of equity, the areas that actually touch regular everyday people, especially those who are our most marginalized communities. Rolled back, stripped. There is an all-out attack. So whether we're looking at even starting with our own history, they're trying to rewrite the history of Black people in this country. You know, and it pisses me off because if you do it, hold your chest out. Like, if you did this thing, if this country did this thing, because if I do it, I'm going to say I did it and I'm going to stand strong. So don't do it if you can't take it, you know? And so to then, want to erase our history because it makes people sad, how you think we feel? We talk about, what's happening to public education and that being defunded. We look at FEMA, FEMA not having the funding that it needs. People right now in St. Louis are still sleeping in hotels. People are sleeping still in tents. People are in need. People don't have power, in their homes. People still have tarps. I flew over St. Louis recently. This was, maybe a month or so ago. And I flew right over the blue tarps. And I would remember thinking as I'm in this plane, how many people on this plane understand what these blue tarps are on top of these homes? Do they even know what that is? And so much is at stake, especially when we're talking about somebody who. So for those that don't know, Wesley Bell used to be the campaign manager for a Republican in Missouri who was running for Congress, this person was also trying to make sure that there was an abortion ban. And Wesley was his campaign manager. He said he was just doing a friend a favor. Those not the kind of favors that Missouri need. We don't need those kind of favors or people that do those types of favors. And because it was mostly Republicans, Wesley Bell being supported. So he was primarily funded by a group called AIPAC. And AIPAC is primarily funded by Republicans. Yep. So to say, yes, I am going to take all of this money or at least have this money, because the money went into the group supporting him, the PAC supporting him. So let's say that money didn't go directly into his campaign. It went to those that were supporting him. But to say, yes, I'm going to allow these folks to support me and prop me up, where are your values? If Republicans primarily fund you, then your values are primarily with the Republicans. This is a Democratic district. So the people that are bringing the attacks, AIPAC is the group who primarily funded Donald Trump. We have Donald Trump because of AIPAC. So how do we have Donald Trump because of AIPAC? And we also have Wesley Bell because of AIPAC? St. Louis, this race is recorded to be and reported to be the second most expensive U.S. House race in history. In history. That happened right here in St. Louis in this district. Why? Why would Republicans want to spend so much money to oust a Democrat in a highly Democrat district? Highly, this highly blue, deep blue district. Why would they care? Why wouldn't they want to spend their money in areas where they could flip it? Flip from a Democrat to a Republican. Why keeping a Democrat? Because they wanted to get rid of the one that they did a whole segment on the Republican National Convention, saying, oh, this is the one about to enter Congress. They wanted to talk about this protester about to enter Congress. They wanted to get rid of the one who, during the insurrection on my third day in office, as the insurrection was happening around me and I was barricaded in the office with my staff, I introduced legislation to investigate and expel any member of Congress who participated in or helped in any way with the insurrection. Because a week later, then I was on the House floor and I called Donald Trump the white supremacist in chief from the House floor. They wanted to get rid of the one who was fighting the Republicans, who was making sure that our rights, that was making sure that we not only kept the rights that we have, that are benefiting us, but that we also went harder for what we actually deserve. They wanted to get rid of that voice and get rid of that person because they did not want that person being in position when Project 2025 started to get rolled out. And that is what they were doing with the person that we have right now. And so I just need St. Louis to understand this is way bigger. And let me address this something too. And I don't know if you were going to get to this as a question or not, but I noticed. So Wesley Bell had a town hall. He had a town hall, and that it was really contentious. People really expressed their concerns.
Yes.
And by right, they expressed their concerns. And because they weren't getting any real answers, they kept asking the questions again. I saw the responses from some folks that were like, why do we keep bringing up Gaza? Why do we keep bringing up Palestine? Like, this is about St. Louis. And I hear you. But let me give you a little background as to why some of them were saying. I can't speak for everybody. But when Wesley Bell announced his run against me, it was right after I introduced the Ceasefire Now legislation, because I was trying to stop a genocide from happening. I was trying to stop a whole people from being killed. I was trying to stop what we were hearing being said about what was going to happen there. I was listening and believing what they were saying, and decided that we have to do something to stop it. Because let me say this, if there were bombs about to drop on St. Louis and there was a legislator in another country that had a say-so in whether those bombs drop, or if the money was, if the equipment, the military equipment, the bombs were funded to be able to drop on the people of St. Louis, I would want them to speak up. And so because as a member of Congress, I have that vote to vote where the money is sent, to be able to fund, and that's St. Louis money and Missouri money being sent, to go and fund those military equipment and bombs. Wesley Bell said in his speech that he gave about when he announced that he was running against me, and I'm paraphrasing him, but basically he said, because I introduced that legislation, he brought that up. He said, because he stands 100% with Israel. So he brought that into this. He said that was the reason. He wasn't running against me because I wasn't doing my job. He wasn't running against me because I wasn't turning out enough legislation, because I was not on the job in some way. Because he never called me to say like, hey, sis, I wish you would do more. I wish you would do better.
Absolutely.
You know, never had that conversation.
Yeah.
So St. Louis, when people are asking why, they're asking why because he was funded by folks that were very angry with me about the ceasefire resolution, AIPAC. He was funded by them. They even put black groups on the ground from another state to say that, oh, Cori is this bad person. He was funded by them. He received, well, the money supporting him was about $15 million. So that's why people are upset. It wasn't just AIPAC, it was some other groups too, Big Crypto and some folks. That's why people are angry, because you took money about this issue to run against me. And you said this was why you're running against me, but now you're not supposed to talk about it. So people are upset with that. And for context, we didn't no more than less than $2 million was spent when I ran against Lacey Clay and won, my predecessor. It was under $2 million was spent. And you all know he been there for 20 years, his dad for 32. So Wesley Bell, in order to beat me, they had to spend $15 million. I was just under 5,000 votes when I won, just under 5,000. He was just under $7,000 votes. $15 million though. So that was not a mandate. Mm-hmm. That was people being sold something that was untrue. And so I just need the people to just really know that.
Yeah. And I want to talk about narrative for just a second. As two activists, as two advocates, we have been able to focus on multiple issues at once. So just because Cori is calling a ceasefire against a genocide does not mean that she cannot show up for St. Louis. And she was showing up for St. Louis. And that comes a part of the narrative. And one of the reasons I think that they hone in on that so much. And I was at that town hall that Wesley Bell had. Yes. And I heard community members saying, but what about St. Louis? And Cori has always been St. Louis through and through. And I would also just like to say that was I've never been to a Cori Bush town hall where I was pushed out the door by police officers. I was abused at Wesley Bell's town hall. And I think that speaks to the difference between these two. And that brings me to my next question. Because once again, it is so easy to label Black women who are passionate, Black women who care, Black women who do not speak softly, but speak assertively as confrontational, hard to work with. And that was some other of the narrative that I heard during the last campaign cycle is Cori Bush is too confrontational to work with. What do you have to say to people who think that?
That you have to stop listening to Republican talking points, you know, and I say Republican talking points because that's where this stems from. We don't have Democrats who generally who are out saying, that saying these things. My colleagues in Congress, I never heard any of them say I never heard that. Never once. We would get outreach all the time. Would you come on this bill with me? Would you do this? Would you do that? So that was never an issue. And, even if we look across the aisle. So just a couple of months ago, I was at a press conference that was hosted by Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, and Just Moms STL, where Josh Hawley was talking about the work that he and I did together on RECA, on compensation for those who were exposed to radioactive waste at Coldwater Creek. So if I'm so hard to work with, how was I able to work with Josh Hawley? Josh Hawley and I worked on so many other issues together, and we would have continued that work if I still would have been there. So don't listen to people tell you that I'm hard to work with. What I'm the areas where if I'm hard to work in that area, it's because you're lying. It's because you're trying to hurt St. Louis. And that's the part that's where you're going to find Mama Bear. Because Mama Bear is coming out. St. Louis is my baby. And so I'm going to do everything I can to protect St. Louis. I'm gonna do everything I can to nurture St. Louis, but to also build it. And so where I can't prevent something from harming St. Louis, then I can mitigate the harm. And so that's what I'm doing. And so when people say, if somebody says she's hard to work with, it's because you want to take from St. Louis, you want to hurt St. Louis. And I see what you're actually doing. I'm not just going to sit back and let that go and allow you to hurt our communities, because I am the community. I've been the one that's been in that position. I've been unhoused and slept in a car with my kids. I've been evicted from my home. I've been in a position where I didn't have the lights on, or we didn't have gas. I've been a low wage worker. I've been uninsured. I know what that feels like. I entered Congress. I ran for Congress. When I won in 2020, I was uninsured, and went through COVID uninsured. So I know the harm that happens when we have people who really don't have our best interests, and they're the ones that represent us. And so I'm not hard to work with. I'm hard to deceive.
Oh. That brings me to my next question perfectly, actually. So if there was a voter who was in front of you who just transparently only had the ads of last time to go through, and they felt confused and conflicted on what to believe, what was real, what wasn't, who would you say you are to them, and how would you explain your passion for St. Louis?
Yeah, I'm always one to say, before you vote for somebody, pay attention to who they were before they ever ran for office. What's their background? What did they do in their spare time? Like, find those questions out. What were their hobbies? Because that's who they are. The things that they did that they weren't getting paid for, that's who you are. And for me, I was the person who was out in the streets, of course, with you, during, protesting to save Black lives. And then we started protesting for everybody else.
Yes.
We were protesting against the Muslim ban. We were protesting, against abortion bans. We were protesting, to support St. Louis in every way we could. So that's who I am. Out there on the streets, late at night, 20 degrees, out helping our unhoused neighbors to get into shelters, or staying out there with them because they couldn't get into a shelter. That's the same Cori that I am now. That's who I am. I'm the person that made the decision that I know what it's like to be in need, and somebody showed up for me. And that's something I will never forget, and I will always repay. And I was in those positions because, I got there because the lack of resources or the lack of help. And so when somebody showed up to help, my parents did all they could. But once I became an adult and I needed something different, and someone showed up to help, that's how my life started to change. So I want to be able to be that, but I want to stop people from getting there. I don't want you to ever have to get anywhere near any of the things that I experienced. So if I have to go hard for you, I'm going to go hard for you, because I know what that feels like. I know what pain feels like. And I don't want that for St. Louis. Those bricks, these bricks that we talk about, these bricks, I am like the brick. Like, I've been broken and built back together. Like, I know what that's like. I've been smashed up against the bricks of St. Louis. And so I am St. Louis through and through. And that's something nobody can take from me. And so, and in speaking to the people of this community, you know what I mean. The people know what I mean. And so remember that. Remember that when you remember me, when you think about, well, who is she really? She's that one that's going to show up. She's the one that does it simply because it's right, not because it's easy. I will never be the one that will take the easy road or do the thing that is handed to me. I'm going to do the thing that is mission based and you focused. That's the thing that I'm going to do, because if you hit the brick walls that I hit and I was in a position to do something about it, then that's on me. Mm-hmm. And so there were ads that went out that said that basically that I want children to drink contaminated water from lead pipes. To allow that to go unchecked, I just couldn't believe that that actually was being printed and put out. Let me be clear. St. Louis, I need St. Louis to think about who they're talking about. The same person that spent over 400 days out on the ground of Ferguson while still working a full-time job right there with you and so many others, when we could have been doing so many other things, but we weren't. The same person that when we were standing for Anthony Lamar Smith, we were out there for another around 90 days or so, 3 months. Was doing it in my off time when I was off work. The same person that did it again, George Floyd, that stood so many different protests, March for Our Lives, and so many different protests around the St. Louis area. The same person that I was in my freshman year and I just spoke about it, that eviction moratorium. When everybody went on vacation, when members of Congress went on vacation, instead of me going on vacation, what they call vacation, instead of me leaving, I decided to stay and to do a protest. While everybody else left, I'm doing a protest because 7,000 people in St. Louis could not be put out on the street. And I didn't know how long it was going to last, but I did it anyway. That same person that fought for the Build Back Better Act, because I wanted the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill. The Build Back Better bill was the care economy. It was how we take care of our workers. It was the biggest investment in lead pipes we have ever seen. It was making sure that we had child care for people, like having universal child care. It's been 100 years since we had universal child care. How much that would have helped people's bottom line when you don't have to pay for your child, your 2 or 3 year old, to go to school, to go to daycare or preschool. It was food for our children for school lunches. And I think there was even money for breakfast. Like, there was so much there, so much in our care economy, so much for our workers. It was a 30-year investment into rehabbing and retrofitting homes and buildings. There was so much in there. I was fighting for both of those. Yes. And they put out all of these ads against me saying that, I didn't want the infrastructure bill, and she was so mean to Joe Biden. No, I wanted the whole package because I saw what was about to happen with the Donald Trump presidency, and I knew that if we had the Build Back Better Act and the infrastructure deal, that people would not only see the difference because their bridges being fixed and all of that, but they would feel the difference because more money was in their pockets. And so people wouldn't have been voting for someone because of over the price of eggs that's still high. That wouldn't have been the case. But when we go back to the lead pipes, so knowing that that's who I am and that's what I've done in the past and up through my time in Congress, for people to believe that I actually wanted children to drink contaminated water from lead pipes, I need y'all to know. You got to pay attention to what these folks are saying. And St. Louis, when you see an ad, there is a little part at the bottom that says who that ad was paid for by, who wrote this ad, who did it. Oftentimes, some of those ads, those folks are paid for actors. Even if they live in St. Louis, they are paid for actors that are paid to say horrible things about the other person, which is what happened in my case. But also, you pay attention to who that is so that you can understand why they're saying what they're saying, because you know that doesn't make sense. So I want to be clear about that. You all, as we move through this race, you will most likely see some things discrediting me, trying to demonize my name, trying to say I did this, I did that. If I said that the sky was blue, because it is, they'll say, well, I said it was green. All kinds of. Don't allow yourself to believe the things that are being put out, because understand that the best way to get to power, because power is not the people who have the big money and all of that's not really where the power lies. The power lies with the people. It's the people who have the power. So if you can make the people distrust the one that is helping them, the one that is doing the most, to try to give back to that community, if you can make the people distrust that person, then you take the people's power from them. And so please pay attention to that, St. Louis. So as we roll through this campaign over the next several months, if you have a question about something that's being said about me, if it's something bad and you like, what in the world, ask me. I'm the best person for you to ask. Ask me. Don't ask somebody else because they don't know. Yeah. Ask me, and I can tell you what actually is going on. And the last thing I'll say on this is that the last time security was a big issue. Security. People were, we got Cori Bush pays for security. People were trying to say, if security was taxpayer funded. My security has never been taxpayer funded. Never. That was just a total lie. Security has always been funded through people's donations. People donate to the campaign. People know that I have security issues. They know that I don't only have death threats, that I have attempts. I've had attempts made on my life. I've had multiple attempts made on my life in the past. So this isn't fake. This isn't just some people sitting in a basement that's typing some stuff and just trolling me. No, this is absolutely real, where the police have actually had to go and check on folks and ask them, do you really want to kill her? Like, that's how deep this is. And so, yes, I had security. I had security. And we followed every regulation and rule to be able to do that. And so when the media and when these ads, even Wesley Bell, tried to say otherwise, you all, is untrue. That's why you notice all of the things that were being said at first, just poof. You all, I'm here. You know my integrity. You know my character. So I'm not going to get to Congress and do something different. I'm just trying to stay alive. And so my question is, so when people ask you, Cori Bush had security. Well, the thing is, Cori Bush is alive today because I had security. Oof. I'm alive because I had security. I'm alive because there are people who want to see me in the grave and they can't put me there. Yeah. So I just want to clear that record. And I also want to say, for those people who came for my husband, the person who reads all of the death threats every single day, the person who knows better than me, that knows more about who's coming for me, the person that not only loves me but has to read and hear the horrible things that people say. They want to hang me. They want to do all of these. People want to skin me, all kinds of stuff. This is the person who has put his own life on the line to stand next to me. This is somebody who's a veteran who served this country. This is somebody who has been there with me 10 toes down, the same way I am for St. Louis. So people try to say things. St. Louis. You know me. You know my character. You know the people that I not only associate with, but you know my friends. I'm going to say this. I'm going to continue to be the person that says your congresswoman loves you. You all know that. Because I do. I'm going to be the person that's going to tell you the truth, whether it makes you feel good or not. St. Louis deserves leadership that is not bought by billionaires. Yeah. Because if you're bought by billionaires, then that's who you answer to. That's how you vote. That's how you move. St. Louis deserves leadership that shows up and will fight for St. Louis, so much so to where they're willing to put their reputation and name on the line. St. Louis is worth leadership that doesn't keep score.
Yes.
And that's who I am. Not because I'm great, because he's great. And he built me to be who I am. And so in this moment, not only am I your fighter, I'm your warrior. I'm a warrior for St. Louis. And whether I have a title or not, I'm going to continue to do the work to make St. Louis who I know that we can be.
Yes. Cori, thank you so much for all that you have shared in this conversation. You were able to get really vulnerable, really open, and share a whole bunch of truth. To St. Louis, I hope that you know that who I have always been is for community, and integrity means so much to me. I would not be sitting down with someone that I did not believe in. I fully believe in Cori Bush, and I hope this conversation offered you a little education, a little bit more understanding, or if none of those, at least for you to be a little bit more open and engaged during this campaign cycle. So as we wrap up, Cori, how can people support you if they want to learn more about you and watch you throughout this campaign?
Yeah, so if you want to support us, first of all, we need you. We need you to volunteer. We have so many areas, so many ways that you can volunteer. So we need you on the ground with us. We need you on the phones. We need you, we need all the things. I won't talk about all the things on here because, we got to keep some of this stuff close. So, but you can contact us. We're on all of our socials at Cori Bush, CoriBush. So that's X, it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Threads and Blue Sky. You can reach us there. And also, if you just need information, you can reach us at info@coribush.org. That's info@coribush.org. Yes, and also when you see me out in the street, like you always do, hey, Cori, that's what you do, and yeah, let's talk, let's take a photo, and the same things that we would do before, like that's the stuff that we'll continue to do. And if you notice, you all can attest to, I'll stop and talk to you no matter what I have going on. I stop and I engage the community.
Yes. So. Well, thank you so much, Cori, for this
Thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you as always. We could talk for hours, but thank you. Please follow along. Please just be engaged. All right. Bye.